awareness and career readiness. We want to get you guys prepared for this workforce, and that's our main sole function. And a lot of things I'm going to talk about is ways of trying to save money. Now, what do we do? I get that a lot. Well, we go to about 99% of the schools in the state of Iowa. We do presentations like this. We do college planning. We do freshman transition presentations. We do the whole gamut. We also do individual appointments with families and students. I'm located at 2 places, Orange City. I'm at Northwestern campus. I'm there about 1 day a week. But my main office is down in Witt in Sioux City. I'm there about 4 days a week. So, some of the things that I do the FAFSAs free for families. But I'll tell you right now, I'm actually booked till January. Because I've been to about 25 to 20 other schools already. So I'm booked up till January, but we'll talk about ways you can get your FAFSA done if you need to get it done by a priority deadline. But I do college planning. I do financial aid planning for college. I do the whole gamut. Now a little background about myself. I know I might look young, but I've been in this game for a long time. Okay. Before here, I was actually down in the Cedar Rapids office. It's the busiest office for us. So I've done thousands of FAFSAs, done tons of college planning appointments. I've done tons of award letter appointments. And before that, I worked at an institution called UNI. So I worked in the admissions financial aid realm there. So I have a ton of knowledge to really help you guys through this whole college process. But how do you schedule an appointment with me, or how do you get a hold of me? Okay, I'm going to tell you first. Most likely, we do have an online scheduler. You probably have to call to set up an appointment because my scheduler only goes out 60 days. But I will tell you the online version. So that is icansucceed.org/APT. Okay, so that is icansucceed.org/APT. Now, most likely you'll probably have to call the 877 number right there if you want to schedule an appointment. Some of you might be able to actually do a one-on-one appointment with me because you might not need to get your FAFSA in as soon as you think you have to. Okay, but we'll talk about that in just a little bit. So those are the 2 ways of scheduling an appointment with me. Now, what is this presentation about? Everyone's favorite subject, paying for school, right? That's why you're all here, to be excited and have fun. But with this presentation, we're going to go into a lot of different things here for you guys. We're going to look at the actual application process. What does it entail? We're going to look at the calculating and understanding the costs with financial aid. Where can you get sources of aid? Specifically scholarships. And where can you get help? I'm going to be one of your hugest sources out there, especially when dealing with the financial aid process. Now, when we talk financial aid, guys, we talk about these 4 things. Scholarships. We all know what those are. That's free money based on merit, what you do inside and outside the classroom. It's money you don't pay back. Grants is also free money, but that is need-based. So you actually have to qualify for that. Okay, but you don't pay any grants back. Loans, we know what loans are. If you borrow it, you pay it back. But we're specifically going to talk about student loans today. And employment. You guys know what that is, but what is work-study? Work-study is employment. It is a need-based employment, so you have to qualify for it. A student who works 10 to 15 hours a week on campus, they can actually qualify this and work 10 to 15 hours. It just depends on what your FAFSA results show. The biggest thing I tell families about financial aid is it doesn't necessarily have to be free money. So it could be, but it doesn't have to be. So you could just be uploaded with just loans and employment and no scholarships or grants. So that's one big thing I tell families when talking about financial aid. It doesn't always necessarily mean free money. Now, I've said the term FAFSA a couple times. What does FAFSA stand for? FAFSA stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. To get any federal or state assistance, this application must be filed. Now, what does the FAFSA actually do? What it does, it takes a snapshot of your family's financial situation. So it takes a look at your income, your assets, and we'll cover all that in just a little bit. But it gives the colleges a number to look at and helps determine your financial need, which we'll get into a little bit later. But that's what the FAFSA actually does. Now, I've gotten a lot of questions from parents. I felt like I've dealt with almost every single question out there, but I'm always surprised. every week or every day. But this is one I get a lot. We make too much money, it's not worth filing the FAFSA. Very incorrect. You are going to want to file the FAFSA because a lot of institutional aid, so scholarships at colleges, require a FAFSA on file. So yes, you are going to want to file a FAFSA. It is free. It only takes some of your time. So you definitely want to file a FAFSA. Now there's been some major changes. So if you filed a FAFSA before, it is no longer the same process anymore. You could actually, if you're a senior right now and you're going to school fall 2017, you could actually start filing your FAFSA right now. You could have filed it back in October, or last October 1st. Okay? So what taxes do you use then? You're going to use 2015 taxes, so it's prior taxes. So if you're going fall 2017, you will use 2015 tax information. If you are going fall 2020, you will use 2018 tax information. So it's always prior from the year that which you're going. And you will start filing after October 1st. This is for all students that are going to college. October 1st is when you can now start. Now, when you come sit down with me, I will always do it online at FAFSA.gov, and I would recommend doing it online for yourselves if you're going to do it by yourself because it's much quicker, much more accurate, and gets to the colleges a lot faster. So FAFSA.gov is where you go to. If you go to like FAFSA, some other FAFSA website, they could be taking your money, so you got to pay attention. It is FAFSA.gov. The screenshot's going to look like that. Now, you guys should have grabbed 3 things. You guys should have grabbed a half sheet. You guys should have grabbed one of these. And then you guys should have grabbed a book. Yes. So we are actually going to start covering some of this right here. If you come to do a FAFSA or go to a FAFSA Ready Iowa event, which I'll talk about in just a little bit, you are going to need to bring all this information that's listed on here. If you do not, we will not be able to complete your FAFSA, and you will have to come back.
Did anybody not grab one?
So make sure everyone, at least one per family. So the first thing that you guys are going to need to bring, especially if you're a student, bring your driver's license. Parents and students, know your social security number, okay? Your dates of birth, your 2015 tax returns for parent and student, your W-2s. This is the biggest thing parents forget. W-2s. I must have your W-2s. The information on the W-2s is not in your tax return. So if you don't bring it, we cannot complete your FAFSA. We need a balance of your checking and savings and investment accounts the day that you submit the FAFSA. And we'll cover investment accounts in just a little bit. Any records of untaxed income. So what I tell families on this one is bring all your untaxed income if you have some. I will determine if it needs to be used on the FAFSA or not. So always bring all your untaxed income. Business or farm records. Okay, we'll put an asterisk on this. We'll come back to this in just a little bit. If you have a green card or a registration number, we'll need that. If you are married, I need to know the month and year you were married. If you are divorced or separated, I need to know that month and year. If you receive or pay child support in 2015, I must have that information for the whole year. An FSA ID, username, password. I will come back to this. This is how you get into the FAFSA, and this is how you sign the FAFSA. The students must have one, and the parents must have one. Okay. So that's the stuff I will need. If you do not bring it all, we cannot complete your FAFSA. If you do not have one of these items, then don't worry about it. You won't need it because you don't have it. But if you do have it, you must bring that to an appointment if you come sit with me or you go to a FAFSA Ready Iowa event, which we'll cover in a second. Now, read the directions carefully. I recently came up here. I've dealt with a lot of students. Actually, today I did a woman's FAFSA. She did it on her own last year. She missed out on some free money last year, so I had to go back and correct it simply because she didn't read the directions. She did not put in things accurately, and it actually hurt her. So if you're doing this on your own, make sure you're understanding what you're reading and understand what you're putting in, because it could lead to money out of your pocket. Like the example I worked with this lady this morning. Quite a few money, $2,000 to $3,000 of free money. She could have possibly missed out if I didn't look at her FAFSA and correct the stuff that she put on there. Now, always keep a copy of your records. Okay? Just like your taxes, we want to keep a copy, so if something happens, At least you have documentation with a confirmation number. And you're going to do the FAFSA every single year. It is just not one and you're done, guys. So every single year you will do this. Now, this is a screenshot of what the FAFSA looks like, guys. I always point this out because I want to make sure when you guys are, if you do this on your own, this is what it should look like. If it doesn't, you're at the wrong website. And they could be trying to take your money. So be wary out there of those, some of those places that do try to take your money for the FAFSA. Now, I'm not going to cover every single question of the FAFSA, but I'm going to cover some of the major highlights of the FAFSA. So this is what this backside is for. So the first question on there is asks, are you independent? So what I want you parents to do is read on behalf of your students, and students just follow along as yourself. I'm going to say these out loud. You answer yes or no. Were you born before January 1st, 1994? So are you 24 years or older? Are you married? Are you in graduate school? Are you currently serving in the U.S. Armed Forces for purposes other than training? Are you a veteran? Do you have children or dependents that receive more than half of your support between these years listed? Anytime since you turn age 13, were both your parents deceased, were you in foster care or dependent ward of the court? Have you ever been an emancipated minor? Does someone other than your parent or step-parent have legal guardianship of you? Have you ever been homeless? If you answer no to all those questions, you must provide parent information on the FAFSA. If you answer yes to just one of those questions, you are considered an independent student who would not need parent information in the FAFSA. I guarantee most students here are probably considered a dependent student. Now, a lot of times parents will say, well, my student lives on their own and they file their own taxes. Why aren't they considered independent? Because of these questions. We use the taxes for this FAFSA form, but they are completely different forms. So dependency is determined by this, not by if a student files taxes on their own. Okay? Who is considered a parent on the FAFSA? If biological mom and dad live at home, very easy. Use mom and dad's information. If mom and dad are single or widowed, also very easy. You just use their information. If the single parent gets remarried, you're going to use step-parent and parent's information on the FAFSA. If there is a divorce or separation, the first question I will always ask the student is, who did the student live with more in the past 12 months from this day? Let's say it was mom. Okay. If it was mom, you're going to use mom's information. And if mom's not remarried, or if mom is not remarried and dad is not remarried, you will use nothing of dad's. You'll just use mom's. If mom does get remarried, use step-parent and mom's information and nothing of dad's. If the student lived with that parent more over the past 12 months from this day. Now, if the student says, well, I lived with them both equally, how do I determine it then? The next question I'll ask that student is, who did the student get more financial support from this day 12 months ago? Let's say it's dad this time. Okay? You just use dad's information if he's not married, and you use nothing of mom's. Dad gets remarried, use step-parent and dad's information. Okay? Most of the time we can clear up whose information to use on the FAFSA just by doing those two questions. If you can't determine it from there, what I'll ask you to do is contact the college, because they will have to make the discretion for you to whose information to use on the FAFSA. Okay? Now, business or farms, I said I was going to come back to this question. Now, what I'm going to first do is I'm going to talk about the information we do not include for business and farms. Okay? If you own a business, and it's a family-owned business, and you own and control more than 50%, and you have 100 or fewer full-time employees, you do not include the business on the FAFSA. Nothing. Yes?
Okay, so for the parents and on the FAFSA, what if we live with our grandparents and your mom's deceased? Do we put our grandparents' information or
Are they your legal guardians?
Yes.
Then that's that question up here. Other than your step-parent and parent. If you answer yes, that you're under legal guardianship other than your parent and step-parent, then you are considered an independent on the FAFSA. Okay? Now, back to the business and farms. Okay? So we talked about what isn't included on the business. Now, if you live and operate on your farm, you do not include anything on the farm. Now, if you don't fall into any of those two, you have to include the market value of the machinery, equipment, inventory, land, and it's always value minus the debt. Okay? Now, asset-wise, before we talk about what we include as assets, let's talk about the things we don't include. We don't include the house you live in, any possessions that you own, any designated retirement accounts, so 401ks, IRAs, annuities, or life insurance. We don't include any of those. What we do include is listed right up here, guys. If you have a second home or rental property, that's always value minus the debt. Trust funds, UGMAs, money markets, mutual funds, CDs, stocks, stock options. You can see all the way through there towards the bottom. Now, one special investment on there is something called a 529 plan. Okay? If you have a 529 plan, parents, and you're the custodian, you must report that 529 plan on your assets. If you have 3 or 4 529 plans, you must report all of them and put them on the FAFSA. Okay? It's not under the student's assets, it's under your assets because it's a special one. Okay? Now, I said we need the W-2. Well, why do we need the W-2? There's 2 reasons. One is combat pay, which you don't see a ton of. The other reason is for tax-deferred pension retirement savings accounts. And it's located in certain boxes in your W-2. Now, these tax-deferred pension retirement savings accounts are not in your tax return because it's already included in your wages, tips, and salaries, usually on line 7 on a 1040. Okay? So when you're looking at your W-2, I'm looking at boxes 12A, B, C, and D. So it's this one right there, and I'm looking for those codes. If you have any of those codes, I have to report them. Okay, student and parent. Why we have to report it is that money that you put towards that's money actually can be used to help pay for your student's education. So that's why it must be reported on the FAFSA. Now, I've talked about you can start filing right now, but when do you need to get it in? That's a real question you guys should be wondering. Turn to pages 3, 4, 5, and 6 in your books. On the far corner, it should say a priority date. I will tell you right now, a priority date is not a deadline. You can still submit your FAFSA after the priority date. But to ensure you get the most aid possible, especially institutional aid, you're going to want to get your FAFSA submitted by the priority date. Now, let's say you have a student that's looking at 3 schools. One has a priority date of April 15th. That's the latest. And the earliest one is January 15th. You are going to want to get that FAFSA submitted before the earliest date to ensure that you get full institutional aid that you can get. So what I'm telling families is I am booked till January. Okay, so if you have a school that has a priority date earlier than January, you are going to need to go to a FAFSA Ready Iowa event if you need help, which I'll talk about in a second. But if you are past that date, you've got plenty of time. I have plenty of openings down in Orange City for you guys to come sit down if you want to do a one-on-one appointment. So that's where you'll call that 877 number. Now, I talked about the FSA ID. The FSA ID is a username password. Probably about 90% of the problems from the FAFSA I deal with or troubleshooting is from this. Well, why? Because parents and students do not write down their username passwords. I'm going to tell you a story. It's not a good story. It's a story to make you guys write this stuff down. I had a student that was going to WIT. Of course, he was going last minute. Big mistake. Okay? He forgot his username, forgot his password, he forgot his security questions, and he forgot his email that he used. So there was no way we could try to retrieve this. So we had to call the Department of Education, which was quite a nightmare for him. And he didn't get his FSA ID. It was going to take about 8 weeks just to get the information back. He's not going to WIT this semester, simply because he forgot his username password. This is the one password you guys do not want to lose. So the biggest thing I'll tell you is write everything down. So the student is going to have an FSA ID, and if the student is dependent, one of the parents must have an FSA ID. Okay? And if you come to an appointment with me or go to this FAFSA Ready Iowa events, you're going to want to have this done before you come. So this is where you go. It's fsaid.ed.gov. That's where you go to start filing or making your FSA ID. It's not hard to make. It's hard if you lose it, that's when it gets hard. Okay? So put this in a safe spot. And when you're making this, make sure that you're doing it accurately. Don't mistype a social security number, date of birth, so you want to double check it when you're making this. But one of the biggest thing is make sure you write everything down, okay? Now, I talked about this FAFSA Ready Iowa event, and I actually have a sheet here that lists all the FAFSA Ready Iowa events. And the closest one to you guys is going to be in Sheldon, okay? And that is on November 14th, okay? And it's in Building B, room 204. And it's from 4 to 6:30 p.m. Now, that's at the community college. These are not one-on-one appointments, guys. These are in a lab setting. So you will not have a one-on-one person there. You will raise your hand when you need help. Like I said, I have plenty of openings still in January, February. So if you have a later priority date, I can get you in. But if you have an earlier priority date, where like Iowa State is December 1st, and you need help with this, you're going to need to go to this FAFSA Ready Iowa event.
And I do have an email with the information on it too that I was planning on sending out tomorrow, as well. So don't worry about writing everything down, because I'll send out an email.
Okay, awesome, thanks. So just know that's the one that's the closest. Other than that, the next closest is,
The colleges that aren't on here,
what?
the colleges that aren't on here, do you have those dates?
Nope,
I-
you will have, I don't know if you have it, but you'll have to contact the college probably.
Yep, or I can do that if you want to just kind of send me a list. I'm happy to contact the university.
So
and find stuff for you.
USD, probably SDSU, those schools are probably, I believe USD is April 1st, and I think they're later dates. So they're not as big as Rush. I don't know SDSU's, but from what I heard from USD, I think it's April 1st. That's somewhere in there. Now, if you have, let's say there's been a major significant change or something that's not reflecting truly on your tax return, which happens quite a bit. I've had quite a bit of people say that. Let's say there was a lot of medical bills not covered by insurance. A parent lost a job, or there's a huge, they took a new job and there was a huge cut in salary. These are things where you're going to want to contact the college on, because they can actually go in your FAFSA and change things around and help possibly get you money. So if you feel like you have a special circumstance, what I'll ask you to do is contact the college. And if you're a senior, you're not going to want to wait. You're going to want to contact very soon so they can give you direction on some of the next steps through there. So make sure if you feel like you have a special circumstance that you contact the colleges. Now, once you've submitted the FAFSA, guys, and it's gone to the college, has been processed, you're going to get something in the mail called a student aid report, or a SAR. So this is basically your FAFSA again. And when you get this, you're going to want to check for accuracy. Even if a family does a FAFSA with me, I'm still going to tell them to check over their SAR, make sure everything's correct. If something is not correct, we need to get that changed so that we have the most correct information on there. Now, before we jump into verification, one thing I always talk about colleges is procrastination is your worst enemy. Okay? A lot of times, a lot of colleges are going to send stuff through your student portal. Now, for you parents that don't know what a student portal is, it's basically access to everything in the college. Okay, so that's going to be your housing, your classes, your financial aid. And a lot of this stuff is going to be sent to you. So if a student's not checking their student portal on a weekly basis, they could be missing out on stuff that needs to be taken care of immediately. Like example, verifications. Okay, what a verification is 33% of students at colleges get verified. Okay, I see this maybe number decreasing because of the new system of how things are set up. But if you're verified, there's 3 possible things that might happen. One is you'll probably have to fill out separate forms of the college, individual forms that they want you to get done. If you file taxes, they will want 2 things, either an IRS data retrieval or a tax transcript. And now there's a new step that's been added. If you are a non-filer and you didn't file taxes in 2015, they're going to want proof that you did not file. So you will have to go to the IRS and get a non-filing form. So, and these things you want to respond to as quick as possible. You don't want to wait, so that's why I say procrastination is a student's worst enemy when you're thinking about college. So check that student portal on a weekly basis. So what we've talked about here, guys, is we've talked about actually the whole application process for the most part. So this is kind of where I throw out, what I'm going to do here for you guys is, I usually pass up a sign-up sheet. for people that need help with the FAFSA. Okay, so I have a kind of an idea how many actually really need help from someone. So if you need help from me and you don't want to do this on your own, I want you to write this down. But if you're planning on doing it on your own, do not write anything on this. Okay? So I will try to reach out to you, try to give you some steps and hints, maybe see if I can get you in with me. But if not, call that 877 number. So I'll pass this around and I'll grab it at the end. Okay. Now, what we're going to talk about now is what does the FAFSA actually do? We said it takes a snapshot of your family's financial situation. So I'm actually going to get into telling what does this numbers and all this stuff mean. So the principal's needs analysis says that if a student's dependent, you parents have primary responsibility. The students still have responsibility with the FAFSA, but families are evaluating their present financial condition. Okay, so this is why we do the FAFSA every single year. Families are evaluated in a consistent manner. Regardless if you make $1 billion or $0, everyone is evaluated the same. Now, we throw all your tax information, we throw all your asset information, we throw everyone in your household in this FAFSA, and it spits out this number. And this number is called the expected family contribution, or commonly referred to as EFC. What this number means is this is what the government thinks you guys and your student can pay for 1 year of school. I'll tell you right now, you'll probably not agree with that number, okay? Now, this number always stays the same, guys. It's not going to change if you're looking at 2 schools or 10 schools. This number always stays the same. Now, if I have any math nuts out there that like to know this whole formula in depth, this is the website you go, ifap.ed.gov. You guys can look to see how this whole thing's generated, but I'm going to cover some of the major highlights for you. Now, for the parent side of the EFC, they are going to look at the total income. So that's why we need your tax returns, guys. They're going to look at the household size and the number of students going to college. Now, for some families, household size isn't as easy as just counting the heads in your house. Sometimes you might have a student on their own, they take care of their own bills, and they file their own taxes, but we go back to those dependency questions. The answer no to those dependency questions, they are technically still in your household. So that's how we look at the students to determine if they're in your household, is based on those dependency questions. Now, you do have an asset protection allowance, parents. What are the assets? Farm, business, checking, savings, and all those investments I covered. And you guys have an asset protection allowance, and it's 12% after that. And it's always based on the oldest parent in the household. So if it's 2 parents, it's always based on the oldest. Let me show you here an example here. So the oldest parent in the household is 45 years old. Now, their asset protection allowance is $18,800. Now, you guys are probably wondering, I'm not 45, what's my asset protection allowance? Add 1,000 or minus 1,000 to your age, and that gives you roughly an idea about what your asset protection allowance is. Now, this parent has $60,000 in assets. So you take 60 minus the asset protection allowance, about 40,000. Multiply that by 12%. Okay, so about 5,000, along with the total income from your tax returns, the household size, and the number of students going to school determines the parent side of the EFC. Now, for the student side of things, guys, the students have an income protection allowance. And their income protection allowance is $6,420. So if they make that or less, their EFC would be, and no assets would be 0. Now if they make more than the asset protection allowance, whatever's remaining minus that, it's 50% of that. And it's 20% of all the students' assets. They don't have an asset protection allowance. So, give you an example here. Student made $7,250 minus the income protection allowance, and multiply that by 50%. So if they have no assets, $415 is what's considered in the student's EFC. Let's say they have $1,000 in assets. You multiply that by 20%, $200. 200 plus 415, $615. That would be the student's EFC if they had $1,000 in assets. So you take those 2 numbers together and you get your EFC, expected family contribution. Now, there's 2 important numbers. One important number I talk about is the expected family contribution. Okay, so your EFC. The next important number I talk about is something called cost of attendance. Okay, cost of attendance is actually determined by the colleges. What that is how much it costs the student to go there for 1 year. So the cost of attendance technically is different for every student. Why is that? Because it's broken down into 2 types of costs. One is direct costs, what you actually bill or what the institution actually bills you. So that's your tuition fees and living on campus. The indirect costs varies per student. Why would that vary? Because some students have a car, some don't. They might have extra expenses parking pass. Some students might have more books to get. Some students might like to eat more pizza or go to the movies more. These are all indirect costs. But the colleges put together what I would say a generic cost of attendance so they can give you a really rough idea how much it might cost to go to that school for 1 year. And that's helped, we use the cost of attendance to help determine financial need at colleges. So we take those 2 important numbers, and colleges use those 2 important numbers to determine your financial need. So you always take cost of attendance minus your EFC to determine your financial need. So we have 3 colleges up here. College A is probably a 4-year private. College B and C are probably a 4-year public. And remember, as I said before, your EFC does not change, regardless of how many schools you look at. So you take your cost of attendance minus your expected family contribution, or your EFC. If you look at College C, they have 0 need. So basically they're saying the parents and students can pay 1 year of that school. College A, okay, has $26,000 in need. Okay? What is financial aid? Scholarships, grants, loans, employment. So if you don't get a lot of grants and scholarships, there'll be a lot of employment and loans thrown at you. So as I mentioned, financial aid does not always necessarily mean free money. It could, but it doesn't have to be. This is where I turn to you guys. When I worked at UNI, I would work with a lot of students and families, and the question I would always ask them is, have you guys started talking about paying for school? Most of the time, they really haven't. We've got to start talking about this. A lot of times students don't really know what it means to really borrow a large sum of money. They never really had the opportunity to do that. They don't understand interest rates sometimes. They don't understand the repayment process. And this is where you parents can really step in, give them some of your knowledge and experience that you have. And they might not even know if you're helping pay for that or not. So we've really got to start talking about this, and one way to really start talking about this is using something called a net price calculator. A net price calculator, guys, looks at your personal family situation, looks to see how much you might have to pay to go to that school for 1 year. Every single college website will have a net price calculator. We also have one right here, icansucceed.org/NPC. It's another net price calculator. There's also a few other ones over here. Not everyone likes the same type of tool. So we got collegeboard.com, collegeraptor.com, FAFSA Forecaster. These are all great ways for you guys to really start researching how much it's going to cost to go to school. Start having these conversations and start talking about this. Now, if you guys turn to page 19 in your books, there's something called an award letter. So once you've gone through the whole financial scholarship process and you've submitted your FAFSA, the colleges are going to send you a couple months down the road, they're going to send you an award letter. And some of these you might get the beginning of January, middle of February. It's going to be a lot earlier than it was before. What the award letter does is it spells out all the aid that you have received, as you guys can see on there. So scholarships, grants, loans, work study. Now this goes back to the procrastination thing again. A lot of the times sometimes they'll send them through the mail, and sometimes they'll send them electronically. So when you get these, you want to try to make sure that you're responding in a timely fashion. Of course, you might be looking at multiple schools, so you want to process those, but you also want to make sure you're trying to get these as quick as you can in. Now, these award letters, the first thing I always tell families to do is double check everything's accurate on there. Make sure every scholarship's on there. If the scholarship's not on there and you've received it, find out what's happening, make sure that gets put on there or the college knows that it's coming. Now, a lot of times, these award letters are probably one of the most important appointments I do for families. Because a lot of times families just look at what it costs for 1 year. What I do with families is I tell them how much it's going to cost for their whole college experience. So they know how much they might have to borrow, or how much they might have to pay off, or what you parents might have to pay off for school. So this is what we should be doing with our award letters when we're comparing schools, is looking at the total college cost. Now, I do a lot of these, and probably one of the most interesting appointments I've ever had at an award letter was a girl comes up to me, she wanted to be an artist. And I admired her for following her dreams. She knew she was not going to get a lot of money starting right out of college. She was looking at a school called Arizona State. Okay, it's probably one of the biggest colleges in the United States. She was roughly probably going to have to borrow between $100,000 to $120,000. The dad had no idea. He about cringed. So these award letter things are sometimes eye-opening because you really don't know the total college cost until you've actually gone through these award letters and looked to see what are you getting for aid or what are you not. So you want to ask questions when you get these award letters. You know, sometimes you'll see a scholarship that you get your first year, and then you come to second year, what happened? Where'd it go? So you guys got to ask questions a lot of the times on this. Now, this is a very simplified way of doing the award letters. Some can be very tricky, some can be very easy. But the first thing we're always going to do with an award letter is always take away the free money. So we have two colleges up here, College A, which is probably a 4-year private in the state of Iowa, and College B is probably a 4-year public. You always want to compare with the direct costs, because that's actually what the institution bills you, because we actually don't know your indirect costs, because it just depends on the student. So take away the free money first, so your scholarships, grants. Now, this brings up another point. If you notice up there, the costs are almost identical. So what I tell families is never rule out a school on the sticker price. Sometimes a 4-year private can be just as affordable or even cheaper than a 4-year public. So what I tell students to do right now is to shoot for the stars. Go for your dream college. Okay, go through the scholarship process. Get your FAFSA submitted. And then in the springtime, that's when you guys can start having that conversation. Is this school going to be a good financial fit? But right now, shoot for the stars. Go for your dream college. There's plenty of time to decide later if this school is going to be a good financial fit. And what I tell students is, put more Easter eggs in your basket than just one. Okay, because you want to make sure that if your top school is not a good financial fit, you're going to be very happy you went through the other scholarship processes at other schools. Because you just, in case that's not affordable, at least you have some options. Okay, so always put a couple schools in there and go through their financial aid process. A lot of times students will say, well, if I apply to the school, I have to go to the school. That is very incorrect. You can apply to the school. You don't even have to show up. You can quit the day right before classes. Okay? You don't want to do that. That's a really bad mistake. But you don't have to go to that school if you apply there. So go through their scholarship processes. Then the next thing you're going to want to do is take away what money are you guys contributing, you parents, students. Where's other money coming from? And what's left over might be what you have to borrow. Now when it comes to actual decision time, we're going to tell you as an organization to pick the least expensive school. Of course, every student has things that are really important to them. If the school doesn't have the major, it's probably not a good school to go to. You want to go to a place that has your major, you're comfortable. Cost is still important, so if you can, pick the least expensive school. Work to pay off the balance, students. Paying off those books, instead of borrowing that money to pay off those books, is a better way, because that way you don't have to pay those books back with interest. Okay, so every little bit helps. Now, set up a payment plan. A lot of colleges have payment plan options. So sometimes you can pay it out 6 times throughout the year, 10 times throughout the year. Each college has their own system. Just make sure you're understanding what you're getting into before you do that, because you don't want to be panicked and say, I can't do this anymore, and then try to scramble to try to figure things out. So make sure you're researching their payment plans if you're going to do that process. And another thing I mentioned with payment plans is you don't have to do a payment plan for the whole leftover price. You can borrow some of it and then do a payment plan for some of it. Just talk to the colleges. They're there to work with you. They want you to come to the campus. So make sure that you are looking into this and start investigating it now rather than later. And the last thing you're going to do, your very, very last option, is to borrow. You should be doing everything in your power not to borrow. I'm especially talking to the students here because there's a lot you could be doing to not borrow, which we're going to be talking about in just a little bit. This is some of my favorite slides of the whole presentation because it really talks the realities of financial aid and what it really means to you guys. 25% of students and families believe that their student's gonna get a full ride to college. I call them the unicorn students. You hear about them, but you don't see them. In reality, guys, 61 to 67% of students receive a scholarship, and it only covers 29 to 31% of their total college costs. So I'm gonna ask you parents a question. Are you parents helping out? Students, are you doing this on your own? Are you gonna have to borrow? These are questions that we've gotta start talking about. So that way we're getting ourselves prepared for what our next steps, how much money we might have to borrow or not borrow. Now, other than my other presentations I talk about really students looking at their careers, researching their careers. There's so many important reasons why to do that. And one big important reason is researching their starting salaries. I don't want students to research their starting salaries because I want them to look for the job with the most money. It's more for investment of return or borrowing reasons. Now, I'm going to give you an example here. I'm not going to follow this example verbatim, but I'm going to say, let's say a student goes to a school and borrows $90,000 for a bachelor's degree. Okay? The average starting salary for a bachelor's degree is about $33,000. Take that way after taxes per month is about $1,700 a month. That $90,000 6 months after you graduate turns into $900 a month for the next 10 years. Now take that away from $1,700. That's $800. Some students are pretty excited. They've never had that much in a month, but you parents know. Where does it go? House, food, I guarantee they'll probably need a new car. A lot of stuff it goes to, right? So what we tell students is to borrow no more than what their starting salary is. Okay, so if you're looking at about $33,000, we don't want you to borrow more than $33,000 because that $33,000 becomes $330 a month instead of $900 a month. And this is where that award letter stuff comes in, because we need to start looking at the total college package, because students are borrowing way beyond their means. They don't talk about this in the election just for fun. It really is, there really is a debt crisis out there. And so we've really got to start doing our research and start doing a lot of work to try to keep our debt low. I'm here to help. I cannot stress. I've already got a lot of award letter appointments set up, and it's not as busy as the FAFSA season because some families don't need it because they are going to community college and it's the cheapest route already. But I'm here to help, and I would love to sit down with you guys and help you figure out this process. What I tell families is I never tell a student what to do. That's not my job. My job is to educate that student. A lot of times when I sit in these award letter appointments, I have parents on Planet A where they're saying, tell them to go to the cheapest school. And I have students in Planet B that are like, I'm going to go where I want to go. So I'm never going to tell them what to do. I'm going to educate them. And if they decide to go to a school that costs a lot of money, that's their decision. At least I educated them so they know. So that's my job. I want what's best for the student. Now, finalizing your financial aid. The biggest thing I tell families and students is procrastination is definitely something you don't want to do with college. There's so many things that are very early your senior year that need to be done. So make sure you're meeting all those deadlines for everything. If you accept a Stafford loan, which we'll talk about in just a little bit, on your award letter, there's still some stuff you need to do after that. You got to do entrance counseling. You got to sign a master promissory note. That money just doesn't fly to you. There's steps you've got to follow, and you need to do this in a timely fashion. So don't wait on a lot of the stuff. If you have questions, talk to your financial aid, talk to your admissions counselor. They're there to help you guys. Now, this is a no-brainer for you guys. You know this is where you can get sources of aid. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into these and help you guys understand what type of aid you can get through each one of these entities here. Now, the first two top ones are grants. A lot of you have heard of the federal Pell Grant before. The Pell Grant, the max Pell you can get is $5,810, and that is based off your ESC, okay? So the max you can get is $5,810. Now, work study, we talked about that already. The two bottom ones is what I'm going to talk about now, the Stafford loans and the PLUS loans. Okay, we're going to dive a little bit deeper. What are those? Now, if a student is going to borrow, this is your best first option. Why? Because there's no credit check done on the student. It's a fixed interest rate of 3.76%. Okay, and it's broken into two types, as you guys can see, subsidized where the government pays the interest while the student's going to school. That is need-based, so a student has to qualify for that. And unsubsidized, where the student is responsible for the interest while going to school. Now, a couple other facts about the Stafford loan. Regardless if you make $0 or $1 billion, everyone qualifies for a Stafford loan. Now, if you're enrolled at least half-time, you get 6 months after you graduate to start paying those back. Now, the money goes directly to the school first. So what's ever left over will go to the student. But hopefully, you're only borrowing what you need, not what you want. And now, there are limits. What are the limits? If you're a dependent student, the max you guys can borrow is $5,500 your first year. Max subsidized, where the government pays the interest, is $3,500. It goes up $1,000 increments from there. Okay. Now I'm going to give you guys an example here. I have a student that's going to school that costs $20,000. Let's say scholarships, mom and dad, and their self, they generate $5,000. They borrow the Max Stafford, $5,500. There's still $9,500 left. What's the student do? One option is something called the PLUS loan, or the Parent PLUS loan. This is in your name, parents, okay? If you so choose to do this, it is interest-bearing, meaning the interest accumulates right away, after 60 days after the money is dispersed. It's a fixed interest rate of 6.31%. There's a credit check done on you guys, okay? And it's like a car loan payment. Unless you get it deferred after 6 months after the student graduates, you have to fill out a couple forms for that. And how much can you borrow? Cost of attendance minus other aid received. So that $9,500 that's left, you could borrow that. Now I might have some parents in here that are like, nope, I'm not doing that. I paid for my own education. The student's going to do it too. That's okay. But I tell families there is no right or wrong way about paying for school. It's your money. You guys decide what you want to do with it. But the colleges are still going to say, where's my money? So what's the next option? Private loans. Now, do your research on this. Last year, it was a pretty hard story, actually. I had a girl come in, it was right before Christmas, and she was 27 years old. She didn't have any family in her life, so she did this whole college process stuff on her own. And she went to school. She borrowed money from some private sources, and she dropped out. So she got nothing for borrowing. She still has to pay it back. She had interest rates of like 14 to 20%. This girl was stuck. And unfortunately, there was nothing I could really do for her. It's really, right now is the time really where you guys can make an impact. So if you turn to page 27 in your books, you guys got to be asking a lot of questions if you're going to go down the private loan route. Is it a fixed or variable interest rate? Are there penalties for paying this off early? You get 6 months after you graduate to start paying this back, or is it like a car loan payment where you pay it off each month? These are things that you guys got to do, especially you students, if you're going to go down this route. And most of the times, if you're going to get a private loan, a lot of times the students need a cosigner because they don't have any credit in their name. So that's something where maybe parents have to step in. So this is something where you've got to do your research on this because we don't want to be that girl where she's stuck in a hole. Now for state aid, guys, the first top one is for the Iowa Tuition Grant. Okay, the Iowa Tuition Grant, guys, is for four-year schools, four-year private schools in the state of Iowa. If you have an EFC of $13,500, you can get free money to go to a four-year private school. So it's based off your FAFSA results. The Iowa Vocational Technical Grant and the KIBI Grant are for two-year technical programs. You can get free money to go to community college if you fall into certain tech fields. Loan forgiveness, we've all heard of that before. Teachers fall under this sometimes. A lot of nonprofit organizations fall under this. And there's an actual separate application for state scholarships, and that is iowacollegeaid.gov. So you have to do the FAFSA, then you also have to do this Iowa College Aid to get some of the state scholarships. And I always mention, if you're one of these students up here, guys, if you're falling under one of these, one I always point out is if you participate in the state fair, you are going to want to fill this out. Okay? So that is iowacollegeaid.gov, and it's a separate application to get some free money in your pocket from the state. So I highly suggest you guys do this. Now, the best place for you guys to look for scholarships is the institutions you guys are looking at. So I will tell you right now, if you're looking at a four-year school or like a bachelor's degree school, your scholarship deadlines are approaching very quickly. Some might have already even passed at this point. So if you have not applied to schools, you need to as soon as possible. Do not wait, because if you miss the deadline, you get nothing. Okay? And if you have questions, talk to your admissions and financial aid office, find out when those dates are. But the biggest thing you can do is you have to apply usually to start these scholarship processes, sometimes even admitted. And a lot of times these scholarships are based on your GPA and ACT. So if you're not doing so well in the classroom, your chances of getting scholarships go down. So you want to do the best you can, because doing better your senior year can really possibly help you get some free money in your pocket.
Okay, what if you're looking at 3 different schools, do you actually fill out scholarships for all?
You need to do it for all 3, because what happens is if your top school you fill it out, you find out, oh my gosh, it's still too expensive, you didn't do the other 2. You're going to be paying full price.
Say they all give you the scholarships, do you just don't get the other 2 schools? I mean,
Yep, they just you basically just drop out, or you say, sorry, I'm not going to your school. And the thing I tell families is, if you know you're not going to the school, just let them know. They'll stop bugging you, and it will save them time as well too. So it's a mutual benefit for both of you. So if you know you're not going to the school, just let them know. But you want to do 2 to 3 schools. Remember what I told you, you want more Easter eggs in your basket than just one. Because just in case that top school is way out of your price range, at least you have a couple other options that are there for you. You want to talk a little bit about your local scholarship real quick?
Yes, I can. Okay, so we are still in the process of getting many of them. So check back, and I will be filling you guys in as I get some. This is our scholarship binder. This is located in the counseling office. They're right out by Jamie's desk. So as we get stuff, we stick it in here. We organize it by due date and everything. There's specific ones for specific programs. I know we have, some, if you're interested in physics or some of the sciences, there's one in there for you. There's some in there that are for A. There's some in there for everybody, okay? And then there's also going to be the local scholarships that are just here that are given out by Sibley. Those ones are much later. Those are more like April. So those ones you have a little bit of time on. But as I get them, I will put them in here. I plan on going into the senior classrooms as much as I can. It's kind of tough because not all of them are taking the same class. But getting in and sending out as many emails as I can. If you guys have questions, you just got to let me know because I can't read all of your guys' minds, unfortunately. I wish I could. But I'll do my best to make sure that I do everything I can to help your students get some aid too.
Awesome, thanks. So what I tell families is look at your institutional ones. One thing I forgot to mention is community. If you're looking at community colleges, usually they're a little bit later deadlines for scholarships, but don't quote me. You need to contact the community colleges that you're looking at to make sure you're meeting those dates. Now, once you've exhausted all your institutional and your local high school ones, talk to your employers' parents. Talk to your church. Look everywhere you can for this free money. What I tell students is you should be spending, you could spend 100 to 200 hours worth doing scholarships. You should think about doing that before you even borrow a cent. Okay, there's a lot of free money for you guys out to grab out there.
And save your essays. A lot of the times you can recycle the essays that you use on different scholarship applications so you don't have to do them over and over and over again. Save everything you have because you might be able to kind of change it up a little bit to make it work for a different scholarship application.
Yep. Now, once you've exhausted that, next is to go to the state and national scholarships. There's a lot of people competing for them, so your chances of getting are smaller, but statistically, the more you do, the better chances of you getting one, right? So here's a couple ones I point out. Our scholarship database, an awesome resource for you guys to look for scholarships. Scholarships.com, fastweb.com, those are great databases where they shoot you scholarships. You just fill out a quick profile and they start shooting you ones that are going to match up to you. Raise.me, it's a new wave of getting scholarships. So if you get an A in English class, you can get a micro scholarship. You come to a college planning appointment with me, you can get a micro scholarship. So there's a lot of great resources out there for you guys to start looking for scholarships. Now, an activities resume. I'm going to tell you guys 3 good reasons why to start making an activities resume, seniors. The first reason is when you're doing a lot of scholarships, it's going to be really nice to have that resume right next to you. It has all the stuff you've done from your freshman to senior year. Sometimes they might even take your resume. The second reason is for letters of recommendation. If you want your letter of recommendation to really stick out when these are in scholarship committees, you're going to want to give them your resume because they can just take stuff and put it right on there. The third reason is when you guys enter college your first year, they are going to push you to career fairs. And we all know how hard it is to get a job. I guarantee there's students there that have a resume and they're ready to go. They're eager to get that internship so they can get that job. So put together an activities resume. We have a template on our website which you guys can actually go download and start working on. Now, we have a couple scholarships for you guys. This is our scholarship, okay? There's 2 criteria with this scholarship. You have to graduate from an Iowa high school and you have to go to an Iowa college. There wasn't a lot of people that applied for this in the whole state of Iowa. So your chances of getting it are very good. One of the girls I knew who got it was not the most stellar in the classroom. Okay, so this is an opportunity. I hope you guys will apply for this because your shot of getting it is still pretty good. Iowa student loans. Yes, they have a lot of money to get back. $130,000 plus of free money for students to grab. They've just got to get into the website and start looking for it and start getting that. So this is another great resource for you guys to start looking for some free money. There is a scholarship out there for everyone. Yes, most scholarships are based on ACT and GPAs and your class rank, but there are scholarships that are maybe not for those students that aren't so stellar in the classroom. Okay? Ones that I always point out is my friend got the duct tape scholarship for her prom. It was a really cool dress, so she won some money. You guys know Jif Peanut Butter? You guys ever heard of that? They have a Jif Creative Sandwich contest. Whoever makes the coolest sandwich gets some free money. So your chances of getting these guys are small, but you never know. The more you do, the better chances of you guys getting them. So get out there, start hunting, start looking. Now is the time, seniors. You've got to start looking to see when these start dates are and the deadlines are. Now, just a little bit of tips and hints from my point of view. I already talked about a letter of recommendation. Make sure you give them a resume. Give them a couple weeks ahead of time. We don't want your parents. We don't want your grandparents. We want coaches, teachers, counselors. We want someone who could talk about you that's not biased. Essays. This is a really big one. As you said, you can keep copies of those, but when you send in those essays, we read a lot of them in the admissions world. And if we kind of get tired after reading a lot of them, so if we see an error, on to the next one. You've got to proofread these. If they're not proofread, you will not probably be considered for the scholarship. And you've got to make it pop. The first 2 sentences, you've got to catch their attention. If you don't, you're going to lose them. Because there are people that really catch them and they want to keep reading more. And they put those ones on top of the list to get the scholarship. So there's a couple good hints right there. And then make sure you do the best you can your senior year. Don't let senioritis kick in because, again, a lot of those scholarships are based on your GPA and ACT. If it seems too good to be true, it is. You should never have to pay for a scholarship. You should never have to pay to have your FAFSA done. You have my number. You can call me if you have questions. Okay? Now, where can you get assistance? As I mentioned before, I'm here to help. I'm a very busy guy, but I still have time to help. Okay? So if you have questions, give me a call. You're here to help. If she doesn't know the answer, she'll probably give me a call. Okay? Talk to your admissions financial aid office. They're here to help as well too. You guys should have grabbed a half sheet. If you're interested in signing up for an e-newsletter, guys, what I want you to do is fill out that bottom portion there. Okay? I'll get you signed up for an e-newsletter. If you already have one, don't fill it out. Okay? If you're already getting one, don't fill out the bottom part. Now, please fill out that survey. And what I'm going to ask you guys to do before you leave is to put it on that back table over there. Okay? We are on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Pinterest. We've got a lot of great stuff out there for you guys to look at. Our actual website, icansucceed.org, we have so much resources on there. You guys can play on this website for such a long time. Check out our ICANN Scholarship Database, which is located right on our homepage. Our resource zone, where you get questions asked on a college visit, questions asked private loan vendors, resume template. We have our schedule online button on there. Got a lot of great stuff for you guys on there to look at. So check out our website. And remember, please fill out this survey. This survey keeps us free, so please fill it out and put it on the back table before you leave. And what are your next steps, guys? Get working on that FSAID. Make sure you write everything down. Parents must have one and student must have one. You can start filing the FAFSA right now. Make sure you meet that priority date. Make sure you're meeting your scholarship deadlines. And if you need help and your priority date's early, go to that FAFSA Ready Iowa event at Sheldon at Northwest Community College. If you got a later one, you can more than welcome just give me a call and I'll get you set up for an appointment. Okay? Thank you guys very much. Please fill that survey out and put it in the back, and I'll stick around just for a few questions. All right,
If you
thanks,
guys also need information about the next, or about ACT testing, if you're looking to take it again, I have some flyers that have the dates of the tests and the registration deadlines for the test and a little info about how to do it. For the most part, I think a good chunk of you guys have probably already taken it, but if you're looking to take it again, just let me know and I can get set up with it. I'll just throw those back on the back table here too.
Don't you?
Hey. Want me to get a diagram?
Huh?
Can you make me a diagram?
Why?
Good deal. Good.
So much.
Good deal.
I don't have any cash, so,
More than on.
well, you have to go home and fill up at the tank.